Here at the University of Alabama, and today I'm going to be presenting my research titled Challenging Chronic Absenteeism in High Schools. I've been working with Dr. Robert Hammond in the Department of Economics, Finance, and Legal Studies here at the university, and I'm excited to show you guys what we've got. We'll begin with the question, what is chronic absenteeism? It kind of sounds like a complicated term, but it's very simple. It comes down to meaning missing a harmful or severe amount of school. The specifics kind of vary by researcher and department to department, but it can typically be defined as missing 10% or more school days per year. And these absences can be excused or unexcused, and they can be missing an entire day or the sum of skipped classes over and over again and things like that. How common of an issue is this? A lot more common than you would think. Actually, in 2015 to 2016, about 8 million students were considered chronically absent in the United States. And that number has only gone up, especially in the 2021-2022 school year due to COVID-19, actually almost doubled, going up to 14.5 million. And there's a lot of research being done trying to figure out where the number is right now. And what we've seen so far is that it hasn't even recovered to what it was in 2015 and 2016. It's still a major issue. Some of the impacts of this chronic absenteeism can be decreased academic performance from not going to class, increased dropout rates, decrease on social development, especially when that takes place in middle school and early on in high school. And it can also statistically be correlated to discipline issues, because a lot of times that can be seen as a sort of intervention to combat absenteeism, but we'll talk about that in a second. That's not the case whatsoever. It also has very high spillover rates, which means that if a student is chronically absent, students around them are more likely to be chronically absent as well. Also, I do like to talk about the fact that a lot of policymakers and politicians talk about changing the school system, helping with the curriculum and things like that. None of that means anything if kids aren't going to school. This is the number one issue that sometimes gets overlooked by things like curriculum, but this is the problem that needs to be solved first off. And that leads us to our research. So we're going to be trying to find an intervention that is cost effective to challenge chronic absenteeism in high schools. Right now, we're in the very early stages of this project, just reading over literature, finding out which intervention to test in Tuscaloosa, Alabama and Selma, Alabama, and we're hoping on implementing that intervention by next fall. Some of the interventions that we've looked into are disciplinary, incentive-based, mentoring programs, and then school and family collaboration. Disciplinary is by far the most common, like I was talking about earlier, but as you can see, it kind of be counterproductive. This would be like giving a student an in-school suspension or suspension for being absent from class. This just makes them miss more class and makes them not want to go to school even more. Another one that we kind of looked into was incentive-based, which is rewarding students with gift cards and different things for going to class and going to attendance. But from a cost-effective perspective, we didn't think this would be the most beneficial, and there wasn't as much research on it as the final two, which is mentoring programs and school and family collaborations. And these are the two that we have narrowed it down to. I'll begin with mentorship programs. The whole structure basically centers around connecting an at-risk student with an adult mentor or a peer mentor to be that safe space for them. So they can talk to them why they're missing school, why they're struggling in classes, and anything that can be going on in the home life. This mentoring can be in groups or individual, but it always typically varies because everyone's going through something different. So every mentorship has to be a little bit different depending on what that student is going through. The program that we looked into was called Check and Connect, based in the Midwest out of Chicago. Took place with middle schoolers, and they were connected with, mentees were connected with a mentor, a total of 4 that were volunteers at the school. And they would meet once a week just to discuss what was going on in the home life. And then also they would meet once a month with the entire family and as a group. And this was very, very effective. It decreased absences by about 5 days, but as you can see, the price was a little bit expensive. It cost about $1,700 per year per student, and this ended up averaging out at $400 per day of extra attendance. So not very cost effective whatsoever, which led us to family and school collaboration. So the whole mindset of this is the school connecting with parents to let them know whether their kid is missing class or whether they're struggling with their grades, usually in the form of weekly updates or emails. What we looked at, it was called Papa's Aldeas out in Chile, and it was a weekly texting system that had a great effect. They would text every week, talk about disciplinary issues, GPA, attendance, and it ended up decreasing absences by 5 days. So about the same results of the mentoring program, but only for the cost of $10.86 for the entire year. Whole lot cheaper when compared to mentoring programs for sure. I do want to bring up this fact though too, that due to spillover effect, most of these programs were actually a lot more effective. We looked at a study in West Virginia where, very similar to Papa's Aldea, they had a weekly texting system that had very similar results, but they didn't stop just looking at treated students. They looked at the students around the treated students that weren't even receiving the intervention. And when looking at that, their absences decreased by a lot too, to make the study about 19% more effective. And this image over here, each dot represents a student missing class, and when that dot is connected with somebody by a line or clustered up, that means that they were skipping class at the same time and can be assumed together. So that was really how they connected those interventions and tracked those receiving the intervention, those not, making it 19% more effective, which we can roll over into the mentoring program and Papa's Aldea and assume it was more effective as well. And this leads us to the overall question of which one is more cost effective. It's pretty obvious that family and school collaboration is, but a large problem with that is that a lot of these schools already have texting systems and email systems that are in effect. We have actually already reached out to the Tuscaloosa school system, and they have emails and everything, so we're going to be trying the mentoring program there. And there's a lot of schools are just like that. We're waiting to hear from Selma. Also, in addition to that, family and school collaboration only works when a student has a good home life. They need a guardian or a parent looking out for them, and without that, keeping them updated really does not do much whatsoever. As I was saying before, Tuscaloosa already has family school collaboration, so we're going to put in a mentoring program there. We're waiting to hear from Selma, and depending on that goes, we might end up implementing a combination of the two. Might do the family school collaboration and mentorship program, because although mentorship program seems a lot more expensive, there are a lot more benefits that are harder to track. All the studies that we looked into focus on quantitative data, we're focused on absences, GPA changes, things like that. It overlooked the connections that students make with their mentor that they can take with them their entire life. The life skills, just getting them through everyday life and everything that they can learn through that. And we plan to be tracking that with our mentoring program and whatever study we choose to do with that. Also, those costs can be cut down through the use of volunteers. An example of that would be nonprofits like Big Sisters, Big Brothers, and I would love to implement something with peers, older high schoolers, helping younger high schoolers. And that leads us to our next step. So right now we're looking at the intervention, which one to implement, and hoping by next semester that we're going to have that planned out, going to start planning out the actual nuts and bolts of the intervention, as well as gathering baseline data, so then we could implement that program in the fall and track the data and start getting into this thing. But I'm really excited to help the community around me so close to the university, and appreciate you all listening. Here are my references, and any questions? Yes.
I think early on you mentioned that 10 days was the number that classifies someone as chronically absent.
10% of days, but it ends up averaging around
Yeah,
that.
to me that just seems like it's kind of low, but thinking about children who may be sick or something. So do you have actually access to the raw numbers, or is it just a binary decision, the data you have, that they're chronic or not chronic? Because I would think like probably those who are higher up, like 30, 40 days, the intervention may be more suitable than someone missing just 10 days.
So they do have rankings that they break it up with, called low-risk students and high-risk students, about how close they are to that threshold. 10% being chronically absent, that still might be low risk, because like you said, it could just be from sickness and things like that. But we're also going to focus on the students that have priority, which are the high risk, when we get those numbers from these schools.
Did you analyze any specific demographics of the students that are chronically absent from high school, or just student population in general?
So right now we're planning on next semester. Luckily, since we're testing both Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and Selma, Alabama, we're naturally going to get two different demographics, as Selma, Alabama does have a higher poverty rate. But From there, that's all we're tracking so far. We're going to figure out any other demographics, but right now we're just focused on income, but that might change.
A viewer on the live stream asked, I think the NFPs are probably a good option. I work with a program that offers tutoring to at-risk elementary students, and I will guess that there is a low rate of absenteeism for the participants. Oh, not exactly a question. Apologize for that.
No, that's great. That's actually really relate to that. So my high school was all boys Catholic high school. I loved it. Mentoring was really big there from seniors to freshmen. So that's why I was talking about the nonprofits. I think it would be a great way to do peer-to-peer mentoring, both to save money and have the same effects.
You mentioned the increased cost for a mentoring program versus like an automated text system. Where exactly are those costs coming from?
It's from the service of sending it out, not actually the text message. I will say that that was in Chile when that was recorded, so I don't know how the actual text costs are there, but from what I understood, it wasn't the actual message being sent, but the service from gathering the data and things like that. Yes.
If you choose to study mentorship programs and their effects, how similar are those programs going to be from student to student or school to school?
That's the difficult part about mentorship and mentoring programs. It's the fact that all of them are different student by student basis because every student is going through something. Every school is going through something. That's why it's important to reach out to the schools individually. And what we've read about how it would go with mentoring programs, it's really on our end, it's a 4-hour training session for those who want to get involved. And from there, it's all on them. So could vary a lot student by student basis.